Tonight, we'll talk about China's debt crisis. It is ruining countries, and it's hurting China too. In a nutshell, this is what happened. China went around the world pumping money into economies that were not robust. The idea was to buy their loyalty. In some cases, it worked, but in many more, the money sank. Now the countries cannot pay back, and China needs the cash because its own cities are sinking under debt. We're talking about trillions of dollars here, unsustainable loans, money that China wants to recover but is failing to. This story has three parts. Number one, the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, the centerpiece of Xi Jinping's foreign policy, also a weapon for the Chinese state to extend its debt trap. Well, that weapon has backfired. Belt and Road is now Belt and Road blocks. The projects are stuck because partner countries are not being able to manage their debt. So China has been forced to give out bailouts, and it's not working out for either side. Let me show you some numbers. From the year 2000 to 2021, China gave 128 bailouts. These were in 22 countries, 128 bailouts. Their total value was $240 billion. And most of this was thanks to BRI. A large chunk of these bailouts were given only after 2017. BRI began in 2013. Between 2019 and 2021, China gave bailouts worth $104 billion. So the trend is quite clear. China's bad loans multiplied thanks to Belt and Road projects. Now look at the countries that got these loans. Argentina, Belarus, Ecuador, Egypt, Laos, Mongolia, Pakistan, Suriname, Sri Lanka, Turkey, Ukraine, and Venezuela. In terms of geography, China has covered a lot. These countries may be in different continents, but they have two things in common. One, they all got Chinese loans. And two, they all got IMF loans. IMF is the International Monetary Fund, the lender of last resort. What do these similarities tell you? China is exploiting developing economies. It is piling them with more debt. And it gives money even when the risks are clear. A bank might not lend to some of these countries. That's because they may not be able to service their debt. But China throws its checkbook at them. Then they default. They're not able to pay. In some cases, China lends them more cash. In other cases, it extends the tenure of the loans, essentially kicking the can down the road. Either way, these economies are saddled with debt. I'll give you two examples, Sri Lanka and Zambia. This is part two of our story. Sri Lanka got an IMF bailout recently. Now it has to restructure its debt, which means all lenders will have to take a haircut. The lenders will have to give up on some of their money. But China does not like the idea. So it hasn't joined the restructuring plan yet. 1 year into Sri Lanka's suffering, China has just agreed to discuss the plan. And how much money are we talking about? How much money does Sri Lanka owe to China? $7.4 billion. This was till the end of 2022. Then we have Zambia, the same story. The country is buried under a giant pile of Chinese debt, debt worth $6 billion. This was till the end of 2021. Just like Sri Lanka, Zambia needs an IMF bailout, and just like with Sri Lanka, China is coming in the way. Zambia has to restructure its debt. But China is imposing new conditions. Last month, China said the World Bank should be included in the process. Zambia's finance minister was furious. This is what he said, and I'm quoting, "Discussions at high levels like those just make our situation worse, because what we're looking for is urgent solutions, not discussions that may drag out the matter." He was clearly referring to China here. So Beijing is the villain in Zambia's story. It is also the villain in Sri Lanka's story, and it knows this. Then why does it not give debt relief to these countries? Because that would mean loss of money and face. And China can afford neither. China is the largest bilateral creditor in the world. As of 2020, China has lent about $1.5 trillion, and this money has gone to more than 150 countries. Imagine having to wave off $1.5 trillion in loans. And I must say this here, not all countries want a waiver at this point, but if you make an exception for some, others may expect it. So this is about setting precedent and setting expectations. And China cannot afford it because its own cities are buried under debt. That's the third part of our story. The local governments in China are in urgent need of cash. They have a massive debt pile. And when I say massive, I mean something to the tune of $5 trillion. You heard that right, $5 trillion. In 2022, local governments in China had loans worth more than $5 trillion. Now they're looking for new ways to raise cash. And new loans are out of question because Beijing has issued strict orders. Listen to this. We should prevent a buildup of new debts while working to reduce existing ones. Yes, they should. The question is, how? You cannot export your way out of this. China cannot revive its economy without fixing its debt problem, and it's the top focus of the government right now. They're approaching 2023, or whatever is left of the year, as the year to ensure the revival of the Chinese economy. Xi Jinping has appointed a new premier. His KRA, or key responsibility area, is to bring China's economy back on track. Because this debt pile is like a house of cards. One wrong move, one bad decision, and it will all come crashing down. There's a lot happening with Taiwan. Honduras succumbed to Chinese pressure and snapped ties with Taiwan. We told you about it. It happened on Sunday. And almost immediately, Taipei got an opportunity to flex its ties with a European country. Meanwhile, Taiwan's former president is in China. He says it's a dream come true for him. And all of this is happening as a national election approaches. The next election is a very crucial one. It could change Taiwan's fate forever. Will China hawks like Tsai be able to retain power, or will the pro-China Kuomintang make a comeback? Our next report explores. It's been a busy 2 days in Taiwan's capital. A big Czech delegation landed in Taipei over the weekend. This is the Speaker of the Czech Republic's lower chamber in Parliament. And she's the one who led the 150-person delegation to Taiwan. The delegation had government officials, business leaders, and academics. And they all meant business. While praising her country's ties with Taiwan, the Czech leader also took a subtle dig at China.
The Czech Republic and Taiwan have traditionally been close partners. The Czech representative office in Taiwan will celebrate 30 years of operation this year in November. Our Taiwan policies have been long-term and stable. We believe in the same values and principles. Among them, the most important are freedom, democracy, and protection of human rights. Nobody can threaten us from adhering to these rights.
The Czech leader assured Taiwan that her country will stand by the island nation come what may. She said, and I quote, "Developing freedom and democracy is our responsibility. I guarantee you, we are with you now. We will continue to be with you, and under any circumstances, we are in the same boat together." The Czech Republic and Taiwan are looking to strengthen trade and economic ties. Taiwan is also looking to invest in the Czech Republic, especially in semiconductors and electric vehicles. And China doesn't like any of it. It has objected to the Czech speaker's visit, just like it objected when the new Czech president dialed Tsai Ing-wen in January. But the Czech Republic is not the only one cozying up to Taiwan. There is a clear pro-Taiwan trend across Eastern Europe. Take Lithuania, for instance. It has angered China on several occasions. First, it criticized China's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. It also withdrew from China's 17+1 initiative, which aims to strengthen Beijing's ties with Central and Eastern European countries. Then it allowed a de facto embassy called the Taiwan Representative Office to be opened in its capital. And finally, it accused Chinese smartphone makers of equipping their products with spyware. The pandemic proved to be a turning point. Apart from the Czech Republic and Lithuania, Poland and Slovakia donated COVID-19 vaccines to Taiwan. And in 2021, representatives from these European countries, including Estonia, gathered in Taipei for a summit. Now, while Central European countries are ditching China and standing up for Taiwan, there is a front within Taiwan that likes to toe China's line. Taiwan's former president, Ma Ying-jeou, is in China. He's the first person who served as Taiwan's president to visit mainland China since 1949. And he belongs to Taiwan's Kuomintang, which is largely seen as a pro-China party. Soon after landing, he made some sweeping remarks.
People on both sides of the Taiwan Strait are Chinese people and are both descendants of the Yan and Yellow emperors. Today, many of the nation-building proposals held dear by the founding fathers of the country have been realized in Taiwan and the mainland.
People on both sides of the Taiwan Strait are Chinese people. The former president's fascination with China is quite evident. Taiwan's general elections are less than a year away, and Tsai Ing-wen's party seems to be losing ground. Kuomintang posted a strong performance in local elections last year, winning several seats in Taiwan's cities and councils. The party wants to build on that. Last month, several Kuomintang leaders visited China. They even held meetings with high-ranking Communist Party officials. The party thinks that having links with Beijing will help it win the upcoming general election. Tsai Ing-wen is not eligible to run for president again. Her Democratic Progressive Party will need another presidential face. So while Taiwan rightly focuses on forging international partnerships, it also needs to put up a brave fight against China and its proxies back home. Our next story is about Humza Yousaf, the new leader of the Scottish National Party. He will replace Nicola Sturgeon as the First Minister of Scotland. This was the moment when he made history.
I therefore declare Humza Yousaf duly elected as the Scottish National Party leader. Congratulations, Humza. And I now invite you up to say a few words.
He's all of 37 years old, the youngest person and the first Muslim to lead Scotland. The poignancy of the moment was not lost on him and his family. Humza Yousaf is the son of a Pakistani immigrant. His father moved to Glasgow in the 1960s. His grandfather, who used to work in a sewing factory, barely spoke English when he arrived in Scotland. And today, Yousaf will lead Scotland and its struggle for independence. On the other side of the negotiating table will be this man, Rishi Sunak, the Indian origin Prime Minister of the UK. And we're just getting started. The Mayor of London is Sadiq Khan, also the son of Pakistani immigrants. So the three most powerful people in the UK today trace their roots to the erstwhile British Raj. The most prominent British person today, who is not of colour, is probably King Charles. And you know you're on thin ice when you have to depend on Charles to make your case. Then we have neighbouring Ireland, again led by an Indian origin Prime Minister. His name is Leo Varadkar. And this is the rise of the natives, the same people who were once called rogues and rascals. These were the words of one of Britain's most celebrated Prime Ministers, Winston Churchill. He called Indians rogues and rascals. This was back in 1947 when he argued against India's independence. Churchill said, and I quote, "If independence is granted to India, power will go to the hands of rascals, rogues, freebooters. All Indian leaders will be of low caliber and men of straw." But Churchill and the might of British imperialism could not stop an idea whose time had come, the idea of an independent India. And the much-fated British politician could not have been more wrong. Churchill made his bigoted comment in 1947. In 2022, these so-called low-caliber men of straw led India to overtake the United Kingdom to become the fifth largest economy in the world. So we say to Winston Churchill, we did just fine. But Britain, perhaps, had such a dearth of caliber that it had to import its leaders and its hot-footing to its former colonies to fill the void. How delicious is the irony. It's no surprise that social media cannot keep calm. The meme floodgates have opened. On a more serious note, the possible partition of the UK, with Scotland seeking to break away, could very well be brokered by two persons of colour, one of Indian origin and the other of Pakistani origin. Scottish independence is top of Yousaf's agenda. He made that clear in his victory speech.
And my solemn promise and commitment to you is that I will kickstart our grassroots, our civic-led movement, and ensure our drive for independence is in fifth gear. The people of Scotland need independence now more than ever before, and we will be the generation that delivers independence for Scotland.
According to a local poll, about 4 in every 10 people in Scotland support independence. Of course, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is less enthusiastic about it. He rejected the call for another Scottish referendum on independence. But his spokesperson said that Sunak is, quote-unquote, looking forward to working with Yousaf. Last year, the UK Supreme Court passed an order. It said that the Scottish government cannot hold an independence referendum. The last one was held in September 2014. 55% of the voters wanted to remain with the UK. So the task is cut out for the newly minted Scottish First Minister. And while the subcontinent rejoices in the rise of another one of its sons, the road ahead for Yousaf is far from cheerful. In 2016, he wore a gold-embroidered sherwani and a kilt when he took oath in the Scottish Parliament. But now, as the First Minister of Scotland, he will have to deliver beyond the optics, because the struggle for independence is a long and arduous process, and the British have a proclivity for power. Just ask India.